Started off with 2 split chicken breasts, okay? I get that little tiny can of Chipotle peppers and adobo. I take out like a big handful of like 4 or 5 peppers and some of that adobo sauce, rub it all over the breast and let it sit on the countertop for 2 hours, tops, that's it. Then I put it into a pot and just cover it with water, and I add in 3 cloves of garlic and poach it on low. So it's nice and juicy and it's infused with that Chipotle flavor. So that's right here, all completely shredded up. And then I put the pasta in the same water. I just add a little bit more water, some salt, and I cook the pasta, the penne in that, just a minute under what the box or the package says, so it's al dente, because it's gonna cook twice in the oven. All right, so to start here, I'm gonna show you how to make the custard for this macaroni and cheese. It's very simple. Marcella,
how can I help?
If you don't mind chopping up the scallions, white and green part, and then remember the garlic that I had in the pot. Just smash it right here in the bowl. It's gonna add some additional flavor to the custard. And then to that, I'm gonna start building up what's gonna kind of tighten up. That's our flour. Tighten up our custard while it's in the oven. 2 eggs go in, and that's 2 tablespoons of flour. And then from that little can that you marinated the chicken in, a little bit more of that adobo sauce.
And if you have any left over, it lasts forever in your fridge, so it's fine to have some left over.
In like a little zippy bag, and let's press out the air, and then I usually just break off little pieces. So some pepper goes in, a little pinch of salt.
Okay.
Whisk this up. Now to this, I'm gonna add in Mexican crema. It's a little bit looser than sour cream, but you can use sour cream as well. That goes in. Add some nice tang and zip, because there's gonna be some...
Is that like creme fraiche?
Yeah, it's kind of like a creme fraiche, but creme fraiche to me is a little bit tighter as well.
Is, yeah.
So
yeah, it's
a little bit of water can loosen it up, you know, no big deal. And some heavy cream goes in.
Nice, just a little bit.
Just a little bit. I mean, it's fall, you know what I mean? We're kicking off the mac and cheese club. Why not? You know?
I've never ordered. I'm sorry.
You're gonna feed like 10 people with that, right?
Yeah,
So,
totally. I think a 13 by 9
but
is a good 8 to 10,
Yeah,
maybe
but
12
portion-wise, it's
people. All
fine.
right, you want to toss that in here.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I'm going to also then toss in the pasta. Everything just kind of goes together.
Sunny, I like that you
Chicken.
don't have to heat this sauce.
Well,
you
it's
know,
like a bechamel that makes itself in the oven because the egg kind of really custards and holds it together. Every once in a while, when I'm in a hurry, though, I'll do the entire sauce on the stovetop. Just leave the egg out and just kind of warm up the heavy cream, and it tightens up for you. And you can make it kind of like a stovetop mac and cheese if you want. All right, so you just mix this up.
That's a bowl of love right there. Right there.
That's right.
You think you have enough cheese? Should we add more cheese?
I don't know.
No,
We gotta
it
do the
needs so
topping.
much cheese.
So
It really
then
does.
on
there's
the
more
top-
cheese.
Yeah,
You need
there
more
is
actually on top,
actually.
I think, yeah.
I get some of the restaurant grade tortilla chips. They're always say restaurant style because they're a little bit lighter and crisper.
Yes.
If you want to crunch those down, take a little anger out.
Super fine?
Yeah, super fine. Just like, oh, there you go. Nice little toss on this.
And then mix with the cheese?
Yep, cheese goes, and that's gonna be our topping. So just tortilla chips and some more shredded cheese. Look at that. All right, into the bowl. 13 by 9.
Sure you don't need.
Butter spray, or you can just take like a tablespoon of butter and wipe it down with a little bit of paper towel. Marcella,
Yes, ma'am.
you ready with our topping?
Yep.
That goes right over
All
the
over?
top. Yeah.
Oh.
Oh my God.
It's like a nice crunch. If you're gonna do this the next day, like, you know, put it together and then bake it, leave the crunchy top off.
Yeah, it'll
Yeah.
get soggy.
Yeah, and then if you reheat it, it's best to bake a reheat because the microwave is really not gonna give you the crunch of the tortilla again. So 375 into the oven for 30 minutes.
Sonny, you didn't cover it?
No, uncovered
that's
for
unusual.
30 minutes. Yeah, at 375, it's gonna give you a nice golden brown top. Everything's gonna be nice and bubbly under the bottom.
I have a quart of heavy cream, a little bit of cayenne pepper, and a little bit of smoked paprika. So that's all gonna go in a 12-inch skillet on the hot part of the grill. So first things first, we're going in with our cream. And you can see that pan is hot. Be careful when you're cooking with cream because it will start to boil up quick and it rises as it boils. So unlike cooking it on your stove inside, if you get a little on the grill, not quite as messy and the cleanup's easier, so that's a bonus, but you could see it coming up. Here we go, it's coming quick, it's coming quick, it's coming quick. So when it starts to boil, you just move it to the cooler side of the grill and it'll go right down, and we're good. When that happens on a stove, it's a little scarier because the cream goes all over the stove, but on the grill, it just burns right off. So then we go in with our smoked paprika.
If you don't have smoked paprika, could you use regular?
Yeah, if you don't have smoked paprika, you could use sweet or you could use Hungarian. Both of those will work fine. Do not panic, not a big deal. Obviously, the smoke adds a smoky flavor, so that helps. And a good pinch of salt, I'm gonna say about 2 teaspoons. And then we're just gonna give this a little stir. And as you stir it, it will drop back down. You wanna reduce this by about half. So I'm gonna go to my cooler side of the grill, and we're gonna let that start to reduce, and it's gonna reduce by about halfway. All right, as that is reducing, I'm gonna start cutting up some of my ham. I have about a pound of ham here, and we're just gonna cut this into nice large dices. Salty, smoky, delicious in mac and cheese. If you wanted to make it vegetarian, you could omit the ham completely.
Or if you don't have ham, could you use another type of meat?
Absolutely. If you had like rotisserie chicken or roasted chicken, that would be delicious in here. Any vegetables would be great in here. You could crisp bacon, then do the cream and all that stuff, also would be great. So have fun with it, customize it, make it your own. Look what you have in your pantry or in your fridge, maybe something that you're long on that you want to work into the mac and cheese. Then I'm going to put in a couple shakes of hot sauce. This is an optional ingredient, but I like hot sauce, so we're going to go with a couple shakes of hot sauce. And then I have cream cheese and I have grated Gouda. Any creamy cheese would work good here. So a goat cheese would work good, a farmer style cheese would work good. All that stuff works great in mac and cheese. The orange cheese that is already creamy also works fantastic, the classic. As far as grated cheeses go, you could go cheddar, you could go Gouda, you know, any kind of semi-soft cheese works great. So I'm gonna put in my cream cheese. And we're gonna give this a whisk. And you're just gonna start melting it in there. Bring this back kind of closer to me and a little bit over the heat. And we're just gonna whisk this in. And the great thing about a cheese of this style is because of its consistency, it really stabilizes the sauce. So you don't have to worry about the sauce breaking as much because the cream cheese is gonna kind of bind it together. Right. And as this starts to melt, then we're gonna go with some Gouda. If you wanted to even use a smoked Gouda, that would be delicious. You could use American cheese, that would be great. But I like sharp cheddar and Gouda are kind of my 2 favorite for a mac. They just give it a little bit of bitiness, a good richness, touch of salt, which all kind of works really well. Oh yeah. You could see how thick it's getting now too. Between the reduction of the cream and the cream cheese, you're getting that really beautiful, creamy mac and cheese kind of situation going right there. And that's what you want. As soon as that's broken down, we drop in our ham.
And is this whole method the same indoors as well?
Yes, so if we were doing this indoors, we would be over about a medium-high heat on our stovetop. So medium, medium-high, whichever would bring it up to a simmer real nice for us, that's what we would be looking for. All right, and now I'm gonna start adding my pasta. So we already have the pasta cooked. So because this is gonna cook a little bit longer, you want to cook the pasta about 3 minutes less than the directions would tell you to cook the pasta, because it's gonna continue to cook in the sauce. So we start mixing that in the sauce.
Will this be thick enough?
So this is gonna thicken really nicely because of the cream cheese and because we reduced the heavy cream. If you did not have heavy cream, 2 ounces of flour and 2 ounces of butter would thicken 1 quart of milk. So if you did not have heavy cream, you could go that method too. The mac and cheese is creamy. Now, the last thing before we put the lid down, and remember, when we put the lid down on the grill, it essentially turns the grill into an oven, but you also get the benefit of a little bit of that smoky flavor, which I love. So I'm gonna cut up some scallion. We're gonna mix this into some panko breadcrumb. I'm also gonna put a little bit of pecorino, so that'll be the 3rd cheese. So we have that creamy cream cheese, we have the Gouda, which gives us some nice richness and a little bit of bite. And then the last thing we're gonna add is pecorino, which is gonna give us a little bit of salt. So those three things go in there. This goes on top of our mac. And then I just evenly coat it. We take the mac and cheese off the direct heat. We put it on the indirect heat. We drop the lid down. And now this is gonna bake at like 350, 400 degrees. Let's check to see how the mac and cheese is doing. Because it should be, oh yeah, oh my gosh. Liv, come on, look at it. It's like a masterpiece. You can see that crust has really started to form there. Everything is melted. I mean, it just looks spectacular. So I'm gonna let this continue to bake for a second as we get the crumble ready. We're now gonna pull, oh, the mac and cheese. Oh, the mac and cheese, Liv.
Let's get in there.
Look at that.
Wow.
You know, and I kind of love, too, that the cream poured over. You get a little bit of that goodness around there. Your guests know that you earned it.
So I boiled the crabs for about 10 minutes, picked the meat, and now I'm gonna saute it. Putting in about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. I'm gonna add onions and garlic to this. Look at that. And I'm going to saute this for a few minutes until the onions get translucent. Your house is going to smell amazing. So when the garlic and onion have wilted down and become translucent, I'm gonna add in the crab meat, and you want some of the crab to stick to the pan as well. But this thing is so cool. When you're eating the macaroni and cheese and you get that big lump of crab meat, it's like a gift. Now that the crab is ready, and I still got kind of some of that burnt stuff in there that I wanted, I'm going to transfer the crab back into the original bowl that I took it from. And I'm going to use sherry to deglaze the pan, which is just fancy for saying take the good stuff from off the bottom. So I'm going to use about a half a cup. Woo, baby! You're probably thinking like, this is just some fancy mac and cheese you're making here, but it's worth it. I've kind of combined two of my favorite things, Southern macaroni and cheese and low country style seafood salad. I'm gonna start on my roux. 2 tablespoons of butter. I'm gonna let that melt. I'm gonna also add in flour. That's the start of a roux. A roux has butter and flour, or some type of fat and flour. And I'm gonna whisk in 1 tablespoon. The roux is basically the start of a bechamel sauce, which basically is an elevated cheese sauce, okay? And the reason I'm using a whisk is because we don't want lumps in our roux. You see that color? It's everything from the pan, and as you see, we deglazed all of that brown stuff that normally you would think, oh, it's time to wash the pot. Don't you wash that pot. Deglaze it. And use some liquor to deglaze it. So that looks awesome. Now we're gonna add in a pint of heavy cream. We're gonna start building our roux and our cheese sauce. That's good. Now I'm gonna use about 1 cup of regular whole milk, okay? I haven't added the cheese yet, but just the smell of the sherry and the garlic and all of the stuff that was in the pan that was left, oh my goodness. Now I have 4 ounces of shredded Gruyere, Parmesan, and about 8 ounces of shredded extra sharp yellow cheddar. These cheeses just work really, really well together. You get a good funky sharp taste from the Gruyere cheese, and we're gonna leave some sharp cheddar because we're gonna top it with more cheddar. And I'm gonna slide in that Parmesan. Just give it a whisk. 2 teaspoons of dry mustard. Dry mustard just gives us this really great bite. 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika. And the smoked paprika gives it a nice little smoky flavor. I'm gonna also add in salt and pepper. Not only are we getting a bite from the mustard, we're getting a bite from the pepper, and I'm gonna bite into this soon. This is just gonna look awesome when we mix it in with the pasta and the crab meat and then top it with even more cheddar on top. I'm adding in some freshly chopped parsley, thyme, and tarragon. And that's just gonna balance out all of the sharpness. I'm gonna let that cheese sauce simmer. I've already boiled 1 pound of pasta. It's basically just 1 box. And I have drained it. I did reserve about a cup of pasta water. I'm not gonna use the entire cup, but I did save a bit because of the starch. It's gonna help as a binding agent to keep the macaroni and cheese together. I mean, it's still a casserole, so you still have to have some type of structure. I am going to add this glorious cheese sauce directly in the pot with the pasta. Ooh, yes. Just give it a stir. And did you forget about the crab meat? I didn't. We're gonna add in the sauteed crab meat with the onions and garlic. OMG. If I could, I would just eat it right out of the pot right here. As a matter of fact, I am gonna eat it. Listen, I have been starving. I've been at church all day. I need something. Cheese, crab meat, fresh herbs. Oh my goodness. You can't go wrong. I wanna add in 4 ounces of cream cheese just to make it a little creamier. Ooh, if your macaroni and cheese doesn't sound like that when you mix it, you've done something wrong. And remember, we had 4 ounces of cheddar we let sit to the side for a very good reason. The cheese, let's give it a nice little crust on top. There we go. That looks delicious. I'm gonna pop it in the oven at 375 for about 10 to 15 minutes or until it gets nice and brown on top.
Is there any more mac and cheese?
I'm making truffled mac and cheese. This is a great dinner party dish because it's kind of very casual, but it's very elegant. People love it. You can make it in advance, throw it in the oven, nothing to do when the guests arrive. So I'm starting with mushrooms. I've sliced cremini and shiitake mushrooms, and I'm just sauteing them in butter and olive oil, just until they're tender, which they are. It's perfect. I'm gonna add a little bit of cream sherry. The sweetness is really good with them. There's something about sherry and mushrooms that are really good together. You'll get infused into the mushrooms, but it's also gonna deglaze the pan so you get all the flavor into the truffled mac and cheese. Okay, while that cooks, I'm gonna cook the pasta. So I like to use cavatappi, which is like a squiggly pasta. I'm gonna pour it into a big pot of boiling salted water, and that cooks for about 6 to 8 minutes. Next, the sauce. So I'm starting with truffle butter. It's a 3-ounce pot. I use white truffle butter because I really like the flavor. Okay, that's gonna melt, and now I'm gonna make the sauce. I'll add half a cup of all-purpose flour, whisk it constantly for 2 minutes, pour in 4 cups of scalded whole milk, and cook the sauce, stirring constantly with a wooden spoon for 2 minutes. So now I'm gonna add lots of cheese. So I've got 4 cups of Gruyere and 3 cups of grated extra sharp cheddar, and then lots of seasonings. Just a sprinkling of nutmeg, 2 tablespoons of salt, and lots of pepper. Just gonna stir this in. Oh, this smells good, it looks good. This is like classic comfort food, all dressed up for a party. Okay, I think the pasta's ready, so I'm gonna just drain it. I'm just gonna put it right in the bowl. Lots of pasta. Okay, now I'm just gonna put the sauce into the pasta, and I wanna do it while it's still hot. You can really smell the nutmeg. It's a little subtle, but it really makes a difference. And then stir all this in. And then I'm gonna add probably 2/3 of the mushrooms that I cooked. I'll save some for the top. You can really smell the truffles. How good is this gonna be? The aroma is gonna be all the way through the house. That's nicely mixed. Okay, just put it right in the dish. So nice. You can really make this like early in the day or even the day before and just throw it in the oven before dinner. And just because I can't leave well enough alone, I've made herb breadcrumbs to put on top, and it gives a nice, really crunchy topping and lots of flavor. Let me tell you how I made them. I put 1½ cups of diced white bread with the crust removed into the food processor, with 2 cloves of garlic chopped, 3 tablespoons of chopped fresh parsley, turned it on, and in a few moments, I had perfectly fine breadcrumbs all ready to sprinkle over the mac and cheese. Okay, one more thing. Just so everybody knows there are mushrooms in this and truffles. I'm just gonna do some mushrooms right down the middle of the dish. Okay. into the oven, 375 degrees for 40 minutes, and this is going to be amazing. And that's truffled mac and cheese. Who knew mac and cheese could be so elegant? But I can't have it sitting here without at least a little taste. Just a little corner, nobody will miss it. It just smells so good. That's a little taste. That's the best mac and cheese I've ever made.
Two of my favorite spring recipes are mac and cheese and pasta primavera, a longtime favorite of mine. So I'm mashing up the two and making mac and cheese primavera. How good does that sound? I'm adding some vegetables to a pot containing butter and oil. I just cut a bunch of asparagus into about 2-inch pieces, and then I'll add some broccoli florets. Primavera, of course, means spring, so I'm using spring vegetables. And I also like to add garlic and green onion. I'll just scrape them in. And for color, I'm adding some red bell pepper. Not exactly a famous spring vegetable, but sometimes I like to throw a little color in there just for fun. I'm gonna stir it around just a bit, and I'll add some salt and pepper. Simple seasoning. Spring vegetables don't need much. I'm gonna stir and cook the veggies in the butter and oil for a few minutes. Okay, these veggies look gorgeous. They're still nice and crisp, but they're starting to turn really bright green. I'm gonna add ½ a cup of white wine. You can skip the wine and add broth if you prefer. And I don't wanna cook the vegetables too much, so this is a pretty quick moving recipe. So next comes 2 cups of whole milk. Spring is not the time to skimp and use spout-free milk in your recipes. And then about ½ a cup of heavy cream, salt and pepper. And this sauce is gonna take a little bit of time to get hot and start to bubble up. So I'm gonna grab another spring veggie out of the freezer. Frozen peas. You can use fresh peas if you have them. I rarely have fresh peas. There's something about my soil that is not conducive with growing peas. I'm just fine with the frozen, and I just pour them right in. I'm cheating a little bit on the sauce, and I'll show you how. It's really easy. First, I'm gonna put some cheeses into a bowl. I've got a generous cup of white cheddar and a generous cup of fontina. Now, by cheating, I mean I'm gonna use cornstarch to help thicken the sauce rather than make a white sauce and take all that time. 2 teaspoons of cornstarch, and then I'll just use my fingers. Okay, the cheese is totally coated, and the sauce is now bubbling away, which means it's hot enough to add the cheese. So I'm gonna add just a handful at a time, and I'll stir it lightly and make sure it all gets incorporated. Look at how thick this got already. It looks beautiful. Needs a little more pepper. I like to see those little flecks. And before I stir in the pepper, I'm gonna go ahead and add the macaroni. And for the macaroni, I'm using little shells. Now, drum roll, please. I'll turn the heat off under the sauce. Holy moly, it looks so good. The little shells are just capturing that sauce. So to finish it off, I like to sprinkle on green onions just all over. Okay, there it is, mac and cheese primavera. Now I'm just gonna get the macaroni on to boil. I've got a pound box. Now while the macaroni cooks, I'll get started on the cheese sauce. Just turn the heat on medium, and then into the pot, I'll pour a cup of heavy cream. This is definitely a treat. Very, very rich and decadent. And then to the cream, I'll add just a couple of tablespoons of butter. And then while that starts to melt, I'm gonna throw a garlic clove in here. And then as it melts, the garlic will infuse the butter and cream and just add to the deliciousness of the mac and cheese. Okay, while the cream keeps heating up, I'll get started on the cheese. Now, one of the cheeses I love to put in this Italian mac and cheese is goat cheese. And I'm just using a fork to crumble it into chunks. And now for the grating cheeses, I'm gonna start with fontina. I love using fontina for mac and cheese. It's really, really creamy, really smooth. I'm gonna grate about a half a cup of this, and then I've still got Parmesan and Romano to go. Okay, got the Romano grated, so all the cheese is ready, and now I can pull this lusciousness together. First thing I wanna do is get the garlic clove out of the pot, and then all the cheese goes in. The fontina and Parmesan, the wonderful sharp Romano, the incredibly heavenly goat cheese. Okay, now before I even stir it, I'm gonna drain the macaroni, and I'll just put it right into the pot, and it'll help melt the cheese even quicker. There's a little bit of water on the macaroni, so that'll help the sauce with the consistency. I love this sauce. A lot of times when I make mac and cheese, I start with a white sauce and then add the cheese. This is so much easier. It's basically just cream and cheese, macaroni, stir it all together. Okay, give it a little stir. Now it doesn't need too much salt because there is so much sharp cheese in here, so I'll just add a little bit, but plenty of black pepper. Now I'll just stir it around and let the hot macaroni do the job. Okay, it is absolutely perfect. Now just to give it a little brightness, I'll mince up some parsley. I can act like it's a vegetable. Then I won't feel so guilty about all that cheese. Okay, now I'll just stir the parsley in. I mean, this is a work of art.
When it comes to comfort food, I'd say mac and cheese is pretty high on everybody's list. So for dinner tomorrow night, I thought I'd make a grown-up mac and cheese with bacon and blue cheese. How bad can that be? So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just cook the bacon. And instead of doing it in a pan with it spattering all over the place, I like to do it on a baking rack in the oven. Okay, into the oven, 400 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes until it's nice and crisp and browned. Okay, next to cook the pasta. And that's gonna cook for about 10 or 11 minutes. Now I'm gonna make the white sauce. It's really the same white sauce you'd make for any gratin or pot pie. Once you've mastered it, it's really easy. Okay, so I need 1.5 cups of milk, and I'm gonna heat it up. And then in another pot, 2 tablespoons of butter. Turn on the heat, 2 tablespoons of flour. So I'm just gonna cook these together for about 2 minutes. You don't want the butter to burn. I'm gonna whisk them together. So this cooked butter and flour is gonna act as a thickener for the sauce. Now I'm gonna add the hot milk to it, and it's gonna thicken it. Okay, I'm just gonna cook that over low heat until it just gets a little thicker. It's looking good though. Okay, in the meantime, I'm gonna get the cheeses ready. So I'm using 3 different kinds of cheeses. I'm gonna use Gruyere first, because it's got a nice nutty flavor. I'm just gonna grate it. You can actually do this in a food processor too. It's really fast, but it's not a lot of cheese, so I'll just do it by hand. Okay, I need about 1/2 cup, so that's fine. And the next one is cheddar, good English cheddar, nice and sharp. Okay, I need about 1/3 cup of cheddar. That's perfect. And the last cheese is Roquefort. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna crumble about 2 ounces into the sauce. And it's gonna give it a really nice piquant, tangy flavor. Okay, let's see how this is doing. Oh, the white sauce is just perfect now. It's thickened, it's not incredibly thick, but what it does is just coat the spoon. So now off the heat, I'm gonna add all the cheeses. So 1/2 cup of Gruyere, 1/3 cup of cheddar, and about 2 ounces of Roquefort. You can really use any kind of blue cheese, but Roquefort has a particularly wonderful flavor. And a little bit of nutmeg. It's a really classic spice that's used in gratins. You sort of won't know it's there, but it'll make everything else taste better. Give it a stir so the cheeses all melt in. Now that's a much better way to do bacon, so it's not splattering all over the place. Just chop it up. put it right in. Okay, time to drain the pasta. So I'm just gonna put this right back into the sauce. Just stir it around. This is so easy to make in a large quantity, but since it's just Jeffrey and me, I'm just making it for 2. And the best thing is, I can make it today and bake it off tomorrow. And then I can spend tomorrow with Jeffrey instead of cooking. Okay, a little bit of a topping so it's sort of crunchy on the top. So just take 2 pieces of white bread, cut off the crusts, and just chop them up. Put them in the bowl of a food processor with a steel blade, and just a little bit of fresh basil, a couple of leaves. Just put it right in the food processor with the bread, and just pulse it until it's crumbs. Okay, and just right on top of the mac and cheese, so it's creamy on the bottom and crunchy on the top. Okay. Into the fridge. I'm gonna bake it tomorrow night for a cozy and comforting dinner for Jeffrey and me. Jeffrey's not gonna believe how fast I can make dinner. So I've got mac and cheese with blue cheese and bacon, a lemon curd tart. Mac and cheese is gonna bake 400 degrees for 35 to 40 minutes. It's gonna be bubbly and hot and crunchy on the top. It's gonna be really good.
How did you whip up this unbelievable dish when we were together all afternoon?
I have a secret and I'm not telling.
Are you not gonna tell me your secrets? After all these years of marriage, you're gonna hold the secret from me?
Now, while those work, let's talk about this mac, daddy and cheese. I don't know if it was necessarily the mac and cheese or my wrapping that you all enjoyed. Some shallots go down and a little bit of garlic. Now, this is one of my favorite ways to handle garlic and to handle shallots is to kind of slow roast them. When you slow roast them, you kind of bring out that sweetness that you really love about it. People say, oh, I don't like garlic, it's so bitter, it's so, because you probably had it the wrong way. Come over here to Daddy, Dr. Garlic, and I'll help you out. Okay? All right. So we get those together in a little bit of a tent, hit it with a little olive oil. Actually, I like to throw a little salt and a little pepper in there too. Kind of sealed up, not super, super tight. Check it out. And down we go on a pan. Kind of a nice little Easter basket-y thing. Okay, in about 325, 20 minutes or so. Now, while that's going and getting nice and caramelized, let me get some bacon and some heavy cream, and this is gonna be kind of the beginning and start. Was it the cream? You all big cream fans? I like that. You didn't strike me as cream fans, but okay, always check it too. I'll tell you a great story. One time I'm making fettuccine, Cajun chicken Alfredo, or actually it was tequila turkey fettuccine, and we got the, because I always get those mixed up. And we asked my buddy's wife to stop, it was not his wife anymore actually, but we asked her to stop and get the cream for us, the heavy cream. And it was actually the sweetened heavy cream. So make an Alfredo sauce with that. And my buddy that's watching this right now is dying that I said that. But just keep it between us and the other 400 million people watching this. Okay, a little thyme going into this. Forget it, I'm not taking it off the stem. I don't have any time for that, but hey! Okay, so let's check these out. These have got a nice little crunch going to them. This cream is gonna reduce down by about 1/3 if I turn the heat up. Okay, now I'm going low and slow on the bacon because I really want to render down the fat and get some nice crispy bacon because I'm gonna pile that on top of this mac, daddy and cheese. That's all I can sing. Okay, so here's the deal. The tenders are working, the cream's going down, the bacon's cooking, I salt the water, I add the pasta. When you come back, it's mac, daddy, mac and cheese. Okay, shallots and garlic. Hot, 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 hot. And don't tell me you don't do that at home. Okay? Now, the bacon's gonna work in 2 different ways. One, it's gonna be a nice crunchy topping. And 2, it's gonna work as the base of my, my roux that's going to work with my cream to tighten up to make my cheese sauce. Yes. I know you're all... Bacon, cheese sauce, yeah, my middle name, okay. Open those bad boys up, get that garlic out. This is a great way to do it. I'll tell you, if you take some garlic like this whole thing I did with the shallots, and go ahead and make a spread out of it and put it on top of some bread and hit a little fresh Roma tomatoes on top of that, you will love it. Who took my knife? That one's, Turkey Man took it? It's getting close to your day, isn't it? Okay, give these a quick little chop up. Talk amongst yourselves. Your favorite turkey recipe? These go in. Now, so I've got some hot oil. I got the shallots and garlic. They're doing their time. Let's get over with a little bit of flour. Why do you keep putting these over here? What's your... I don't know what your problem... I mean, the whole time. Okay, a little bit of flour goes down. Make some roux. Try not to ruin... No, I'm sorry. I'm not even going to say it. I let it go. Come on. Halfway through, I let it go. Okay? Now... Here we go. We get this down. Now, we could put a little color on this if we want, and kind of darken it up if we were doing a gumbo or something. But right now, I'm making it kind of blonde. Now, I'm going to hit him with some cream. Now, the cream's been doing some thyme. That I can do. Okay? Let me scoop that thyme out of there. Get that out of the way. Okay, now what's happened here is it's reduced by about a third. Now, adding the warm cream in right now is kind of the kicker. If you put in the cold cream on top of the flour, that's when you, well, you don't know why you get mystery dumplings in your gravy. Okay, so just a little at a time, right in on top of that. And this works as the bridge to adding in our cheese. So people make mac and cheese and they say, well, as soon as I heat my cheese up in the microwave, as soon as I heat it up in the microwave, I don't have anything against microwaves. But as soon as you heat up in the microwave, it all kind of tightens up so much. You get that big clump at the bottom of the fondue pot. It's because you push the cheese too fast and it kind of tightens up and forms into a ball. So, there we go. Done with this guy. You know the movie? Done with this guy. All right, now we get a little pepper jack. Jack cheese works great at... Members of the Pepper Jack Society over here. So we get the cheese in, get a little cheddar in. Again. I'm gonna save just a little, forget it, everybody. Like we're watching our diet today. Okay, stir this up into here. Just kind of get it coated with that. Let me get a little salt and pepper down on it. There we go. There we go. Okay, now reach over. Hot, hot, yeah. Let that drain out a second. Try not to drop it. Now, I like to use penne in mine. I'm not a big, I like to use the elbow macaroni when I'm making mac salad. But this right here, this has got some real nice texture to it. So the penne is my way to go. Rigate, with the edges on it, so it holds some sauce. Okay, so we mix that around. Now, man, I've got every utensil I own out. Let's see here, clear a landing spot, somebody. Down into the dish. Now, this is already cooked. Oh, I know. I'm crying inside. Good call. Little panko on top. There we go. We're gonna hit a little bit of parsley on top of that for some great color. What do you think with that bacon? You think I should do time with that? Absolutely. A little bit of bacon. There we are, and I got some olive oil here. Now what's gonna happen, I'm gonna pop this in the oven about 350 for about 20 minutes and let that brown up nice.
So I have a box of elbow pasta. You can't go wrong with elbow pasta. I'm going to boil this for 7 minutes until it's al dente. It's gonna cook in the oven. So if you overcook your pasta on top of the stove, you're gonna have some really mushy macaroni and cheese, and you don't want that. All right, so I'm gonna let this boil, and I got some cheese to shred. All right, so I have sharp cheddar and extra sharp cheddar. Instead of using pre-shredded cheese, I just like to shred my own. Old school is the way to go. This shredded cheese will be the base of my cheese sauce. Right, let me pause, my pasta is ready. Right, so I rinsed it with some cold water to stop the cooking process and just setting it back there. Gotta finish up with this cheese. So what I do is just eyeball it. All right, and I'm using the extra sharp cheddar to cut into small cubes. I'll add the cubes right before it goes in the oven. Gotta make a cheese sauce. I'm gonna head over to my stove. I am making a cheese sauce The fancy term for it would be a bechamel, which is a roux. It's basically gonna thicken up my cheese sauce. So I have a half a stick of unsalted butter. I'm gonna add to this a few pinches of flour. My grandmother never measured this. She just put it in there. So now I'm gonna add 2 cups of whole milk, a half a cup of heavy cream. Bring this to a rolling boil. It should slightly thicken up as the heat rises. I'm gonna add my sharp cheddar cheese now. I reserved a little bit because I like to top it right before I put it in the oven. This is the consistency I want. Almost like a nacho cheese consistency. Okay, my grandmother does not use cream cheese, but I like using cream cheese because cream cheese just adds a slight tang. I'm gonna add a pinch of salt, pepper, and garlic. Just added my garlic powder. I'm gonna add some freshly cracked black pepper and a pinch of salt. You don't wanna over salt your macaroni and cheese. All right, I'm gonna take it over here. I'm gonna put my elbow pasta in my pot. I'm gonna do all the mixing in this pot. Grab my spoon back here. You hear that? You hear that? You know you got some good macaroni and cheese. Whoo, look at this, y'all. Woo-hoo. All right, so last but not least, I'm gonna add in 2 eggs. I'm gonna whisk it in there with my sour cream. My grandmother doesn't put sour cream. I find that sour cream just elevates that tanginess from the extra sharp cheddar, so I like using that sour cream in there. And this is what makes Southern macaroni and cheese different from other macaroni and cheeses. It's the egg. It's what's gonna hold the macaroni and cheese together. Because essentially, macaroni and cheese is a casserole. Fold in the egg. I have a 9x13 casserole dish that I put some melted butter in there. Just gonna pour that directly to my casserole dish. So now it's the time to add the cube extra sharp cheddar. Last but not least, the reserved sharp cheddar. All right, so I have my oven preheated to 350. I'm gonna bake this uncovered until it gets slightly golden brown on top and all the cheese has melted. Once that happens, I'm gonna get some foil and loosely cover it with foil and bake it for an additional 15 minutes to cook the center. Okay. I'm pulling out my macaroni and cheese. Ooh, I tell you, it smells delicious. You wanna see it? Look. Look at that. It looks like my grandma's. It actually looks a little better. It looks good. Grandma, you didn't hear that. Yours is still good.
Oh, this smells amazing.
All right, y'all ready to dig in?
Yes. The mac and cheese is amazing.
Thank you.
So
Thank
creamy
you.
and cheesy. Wow.
First thing I'm gonna make is this mac and cheese, which is traditional mac and cheese with the volume turned up. So to make real mac and cheese, as opposed to the stuff in the box, first thing I want to do is make a bechamel sauce, which is really a fancy word for white sauce. So I'm going to heat 1 quart of milk, and then in another pan, I'm going to melt 6 tablespoons of butter, and add half a cup of flour, and cook them together for about 2 minutes. While I'm whisking it, you don't want the butter to burn. This is the kind of sauce you use in a gratin, which sounds fancy in French, but it's perfect for mac and cheese. Okay, now I just want to slowly add the hot milk, and you'll see the whole thing becomes a really nice, thick, white sauce. Add it whisking. Actually, I think you can just, whoa, that's hot. How about forget slowly, just dump it all in. Okay, there, that's fast. And now off the heat, just gonna add some flavorings. Tablespoon of salt. It seems like a lot, but remember we're putting a lot of pasta in this. Half a teaspoon of pepper, and half a teaspoon of nutmeg, which is sort of a classic gratin seasoning. I thought would be really good with mac and cheese. Just whisk it together. I actually think nutmeg brings out the flavor in the cheese, which brings me to the next thing, cheese. Lots of good cheese. So the first thing I'm gonna do is put in 12 ounces of good Swiss Gruyere. It's a really nutty cheese, and it's just wonderful in mac and cheese. And I'm just going to take off the rind. And then I'll show you a really fast, I mean, you can do this by hand with a grater if you want to, but if you have a food processor, it's really fast. So you take the grating disc, just like this, and then there's a post that goes on it. That goes in the food processor. And then the top goes on. It's a little bit of a process, but when you see how fast it is, you'll know why. Oh, isn't that amazing? One more piece. Okay, little piece left over for the cook. The second cheese I use is cheddar, and I'm going to use 8 ounces of good cheddar. So I'm just going to cut this in half. I love good cheddar. It's just sharp and got lots of flavor. And do the same thing. Last piece. Now that would have taken a lot of time if I'd done it by hand. Lots of cheese. Okay, then I'm going to put the cheese into the sauce. A lot of cheese in this sauce. But that's why it tastes so good. Okay, just stir it in. You don't want the heat on in this process because you want the cheese to melt when it's mixed with the macaroni. You don't want to burn the cheese. Burnt cheese, but. So I'm going to combine this now with macaroni, which I cooked. Actually, I use cavatappi. You can certainly use macaroni, but cavatappi's like that, and I just thought it's a little more special for a party. So put that in a bowl. Add the sauce. It's about a pound of macaroni or cavatappi. Okay, mix that all together. Boy, this looks like enough for a crowd. In my experience, everybody loves it, so they eat a lot. So I'm going to pour this into a dish, and I'm going to do sliced tomatoes and breadcrumbs on the top. Gives a nice little crunch and delicious flavor with it. So it really is macaroni and cheese, but for a party. Okay, into the dish. Now, how bad could that be? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take probably two tomatoes. I'll see how they take the little cores out. These are good Israeli tomatoes, and they're on the vine. And I cut them with a bread knife. It really helps. When this all bakes together, the tomatoes get baked into the mac and cheese. It's just wonderful. So just right on top, really simple. And one trick is you never want to put tomatoes in the refrigerator. It really destroys the flavor. Perfect. Okay, now breadcrumbs. So maybe about 5 slices of bread. Just cut the crusts off, cut these in pieces, and then put them in the food processor with a steel blade, and just whir it up. Just do it enough so they're little crumbs, but not so it's all stuck together. 2 tablespoons of butter. Okay, just melt that. Pour in the breadcrumbs. Just mix them together. The butter really helps the breadcrumbs brown. Want a nice brown top. Okay, right on top of the tomatoes and the mac and cheese. I'm going to bake it at 375 for 30 minutes, and it's going to be bubbly and delicious. And next I'm going to make shortcakes. Real old-fashioned food. And I think Greg's going to love it.
Great.
Well, it's mac and cheese, but better, fancier. And
How's
actually,
it
instead
fancier
of
than mac and cheese?
well, because it's made with really good cheddar and it's made with really good Gruyere and
Yeah, it's pretty.